Hello, friends. Welcome to today's story time. If you are a fan of the pain, the darkness, the misfortunate, the unloved, the traumatic, the unseen, and the unheard, then you're in the right place. Today is going to be a deep dive in a story time all about incest. And this is incest as it relates to the Black community. Hence the name Trauma Patient, the Black Plague. Welcome to my home. I'm Pamela La La. And this story relates all about me. Now, before we get into it, this story is very deep, it's very dark, it's very traumatic, and it's very, very painful. So, if you could be easily triggered by this subject, then probably you should click off. However, if you are triggered by this subject, that means it has happened to you or someone that you know, and you should be right here listening to me. And before we get into it, and you tell me that this is something that you can't relate to because you don't know anyone that's ever dealt with that, yes, you do. Because we are everywhere, hiding, all in plain sight. At least I know that I was, because I was the Girl Scout leader spanning over 2 decades. I was the PTA vice president. I was the volunteer chair. I was the hospitality chair. I was VP of programs. I volunteered in my local food pantry. I have so many awards, well, three, in fact, of volunteer of the year. Volunteered at the Union Gospel Mission Center of Hope, uh, shelter for women, a battered woman shelter for women and children, and a multitude of other places in my community. This is not a brag fest about my volunteerism. This is just me telling you we are everywhere. We are all around you. We are in plain sight. We are right there. The reason you probably have not been spoken to about it by anyone that you know, perhaps they feel like you weren't there to listen. And it's not a blame game. It's just not pointing my finger at you. It's just that we know who we can and cannot talk to and who will or will not hear us. So therefore, we remain silent. And that's the problem. The silence is too loud and the silence is too hard. The silence has not all of a sudden it has created a monster within me, because I am just batshit crazy, and there is no other name for what I am. I am balls to the walls crazy. Okay, I am, and I know that I am. But and before you say, "Oh, have you been to therapy?" Yes, 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 yes. Oh, yes. Therapy, been there, done that. No, yes. Therapy, yeah. Did therapy, yes. Did all that. But you know what? Therapy doesn't stop the darkness. It doesn't stop the pain. It doesn't stop the nightmares. It doesn't stop me waking up in cold sweats. It doesn't stop the depression. It doesn't stop those low moments. Therapy has done nothing for that, or at least not me. And I can't be the only one suffering with this, madness that's going on within me. And I've tried talking to my family, but they don't want to hear me. They don't want to listen. They say it's hard for them to hear because the subject is very deep. It is very, very deep. And we're going to get into it. And I know that you're going to listen to me. You're going to listen to me because I know that you're a good person. And if you're not a good person, I know that you want to be a good person. I need someone to talk to. And this also needs to stop. And me talking about it, and you listening, and you sharing, and you talking about it. And if we can just bring this subject out of the closet where it likes to hide, if we can bring this subject out into the forefront, out to where we can get people listening, people having these deep conversations, people being aware, knowing what to look for, knowing what the signs are, not being afraid, not having the fear, then these people that do this traumatic harm will be on the hot seat. Okay, they will no longer be able to hide because they know this is a subject that nobody wants to talk about. They know that this is a subject that is closely guarded in secrecy. They know that no family on earth wants to admit that they have one of those people in the family. They know that every family will do everything that they can possibly do to hide this, to keep it quiet, to sweep it under the carpet, pretend that it's not there, and go on and on and on and on and on. And that is how they get away with it for years and years until it becomes decades and more people. That's how they do it because they know it is a secret. It is a closely guarded secret. And they prey on that and they're getting away with that. And this has to stop. And the shame that is surrounded by this topic has to stop because the survivors and the current victims, they have no reason to carry around this shame. But I can tell you, we carry around this guilt and this shame as if this was something that we done to ourselves and something that we should have been able to stop. And it has nothing to do with what we did. And we are often left feeling like, well, you didn't say anything, so you must have enjoyed it. You didn't say anything, so you must have liked it. We were scared. I'm sorry, my lipstick here is it's my lip gloss. I think I put too much gloss on. Hmm. Anyway, we didn't speak about it because we were afraid. That's all. We were scared. We were threatened and we were scared. But let's just get into my story and then we'll go along. There's more. We'll go along, okay? We'll go along. I'm sorry. This is hard, but we're going to talk about it. Okay? This is hard, but we're going to talk about it and I know that you are going to listen. So, you know, just I was triggered to tell this, to talk about this because I was listening to one of my little favorites, and she is Rebecca on YouTube, and she does story times. And it was just the cutest little story ever. She's going along and on, and then she gets to this one story where she's talking. People can send in their stories to her, and she'll tell them. And this is not her topic. My topic is nowhere near her topic at all. But it was like a spooky thing, and and this person brought up something spooky in their home, and then the conversation, just got further, and there she was talking about this briefly. But anyway, it was a young woman that had been assaulted in her childhood by her mother's boyfriend. And boyfriend is making all kinds of mad money, so much money, in fact, that he is taking care of his immediate family, wifey and her children, and stepchildren for him, and the extended family as well. He's making mad money, and so he's assaulting her, and finally she just breaks. So she decides to go ahead. She's going to tell her mother. She mustered up the courage. She's going to tell her mother everything that happened. And not only did she tell her mother, she goes to the authorities too, and she tells them this is not in in America. This is in a different country. I believe she said it was South Africa. But so she goes to the authorities as well. So the guy gets taken downtown. He's getting questioned. This is a whole thing. And so the mother's upset. She's like, how could you be doing this? Why would you be saying this? She tells her mom, hey, mom, look, this is the truth. This has been happening. He's been doing this from this time to that time. And he's been saying, I shouldn't tell, I shouldn't do, and. Mom is very upset with her. She's like, hey, can we just deal with this at home? If you can just go down there and tell them that you made the whole thing up, that you were just upset, we'll deal with it at home. I promise you, everything will be okay. Her wanting the love. Sorry, I thought that was something at my door. It must be my cat. Wanting the love and the trust of her mother. Well, she trusted her. She dropped all the charges. She said it was a lie. She talked to the. It was like a CPS kind of situation, but they have it. It's different in South Africa. Um, in South Africa, But nevertheless, similar agency to where they were investigating the entire home and the entire family. And so she drops all the charges. They ask her why. She's, oh, I lied. Well, why did you lie? I don't know. I just did. Anyway, long story short, she gets back to the house and the mom all of a sudden did an about face, told the rest of the family, see, I told you she lied. I told you she was just trying to bring a good man down. She can't be trusted, and on and on and on she went. And then suddenly she was shunned. Starting from that very day, nobody wanted to have anything to do with her. They didn't want to talk to her. They didn't trust her. They denounced her as a liar. And her mother set the whole thing in motion so that she could get her money back. Not that I was shocked, but really? I mean, in relation to me, I didn't have quite that kind of situation where I was shunned, but I was not believed. But we'll get into that part. And that comes for me, that comes later on down the line. Uh, she was quick to talk about it. I was not, and neither was my other family member, was not quick to talk about it. So we believed their music when we were told that bad things would happen. We believed it, so we didn't say anything. But good job for her for saying something about it. Oh, but you know what? She went on to say that if she had known then what she knows now, she would have never said anything at all. And she's in her 30s now apparently, and she says that she has a good life, she's just living her life, she's put that part of her life behind her, and she's just picking up the pieces and trying to move on. No, her life isn't great or perfect or anything, but it's a livable life for her and she's content. But for her to lose everything, and then for her mother to just shun her like that, it was just an utter shock, and it just brought back so many memories of me, just how I felt in those moments in time, and wishing I had someone that I could talk to, but feeling and knowing that I couldn't and I didn't, and so I didn't. And and I would like to think perhaps I am the only one in the world that has just driven me batshit crazy. Perhaps I am the only one that has just gone that far to where I have a problem. I know I do. I know I do because I am balls to the walls crazy. I know that I am, but it can't be just me because that just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But just I remember growing up, and every child always sees the whole world ahead of them, right? You always think about your life, and then you imagine how great things are going to be when you're an adult. You think about how amazing your life is going to turn out, and how you're going to do so many things different, and you have this whole big plan and model for your life, but never do you imagine heartbreak and pain. Never do you imagine that. Like your parents are always your hero, right? You look up to them, they're like a god, right? Because they do so many amazing things and you just can't wait till you grow up and do those things. And that's how I saw my parents, particularly my daddy. My daddy was an amazing man in my eyes. Absolutely amazing. He was so handsome. Oh my God, so handsome. He had that typical 70s fro. Oh, and he was a red bone. Yes, had that high yellow complexion, that big old nice fro. He stood at 5'11", very, very close to 6 feet, but not quite. I said 5'11", maybe 11 and a half. Oh, so tall, well built. He was in the Air Force, so you know he had that, and just that beautiful skin tone, that nice hair. Honey, the ladies loved him. His street name was Hollywood, although his nickname was Butch, but his street name was Hollywood, and that was given to him by his friends. He did not nickname himself Hollywood. His friends did, and they said because he looked like a movie star. But just for me, that was just my daddy. He was just my everything. Why my mother married a man that looked that darn good, I don't know. I don't know. Because that's something I would have never even almost dreamed of doing. Never and never, 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 never would I marry somebody that looked that darn good. But she made that mistake and she did pay for it. I will tell you that. She did. But he was so, so handsome. But you know what? My parents were always so hot and cold. One day they're on, one day they're off, one day they're together, and one day they're not. And every child always wants mom and dad in the home, right? And every little girl looks up to her daddy as this amazing man, just amazing. And that's how I saw my father. That's what I imagined, of him. Like he was just my everything. And stop looking at this. I see you looking at it. Just leave it alone. I have detached retina, okay? A detached retina. So I'm blind in one eye and can't see out of the other. Leave this alone. It'll be gone in a couple of weeks, just not today. Cause I can just feel you staring at it. I can feel the little judgy eyes looking at it. Just leave it alone. It's not bothering you. You don't have to wear an eye patch. Go get your eyes checked. People with nearsightedness are prone to detached retina. Yes, indeed, they are. So if you have nearsightedness, get your eyes checked every year before you end up like me with a patch on and people staring at it. People that you don't know with your judgy eyes. Leave my eye patch alone. I can feel you. It's not nice. Stop staring. Did your mama teach you that? Well, I'm teaching you now. Stop staring. So, just as handsome as you please. So I remember this one weekend because it was not very often, like when they were hot and cold. And I just didn't understand at that time, and I don't understand it now. But when one parent leaves the home, why is it okay that they stay gone for months? Why is that okay? Why is it okay that when y'all break up, I don't see you every day? Why is that okay? And why is that even considered normal? Why is that considered normal that you're gone for months and months at a time, even years? Why is that considered normal? That, oh, well, you live with your mom, or oh, you live with your dad, so see you on Christmas and summer. Like, why is that even normal? But haven't you seen as a society we normalize that? We normalize that a lot. And I see that normalization in the black community going hard and fast. And again, I'm stop it with the one community. I'm talking about it one because that's the one I'm in. That's what I see. I'm not talking about the Asians and the Hispanics and the Germans because I'm not Asian, Hispanic, and German. How would I know? Talking about what I see every day. Okay. Now, so he came to get me this one weekend, and I don't know why at this particular weekend he didn't have a car, but my daddy always had a car, but I don't know why he didn't have a car now. But all of a sudden he didn't have a car, and so I'm four, and he comes to pick me up on the bus, and it was a rainy day this day. It was raining, and I'm sitting on his lap on the bus, and I remember when he said, "Okay, Shell, it's time to go. Press the button." And you know that little bell that you get to press when it's your stop coming up next. I thought that was just the most fascinating thing ever, just to be able to press that little button, sitting in my daddy's lap, and I love the rain. I love it now, and I loved it then, and I always love the rain. So when I pressed the button and it was time to go, I had never been to his house. And so when we get off, he picks me up and we walk away and we're down the street walking. And I said, "Where are we going?" And he said, "To Aunt Helen's house." And I had never known that I had an Aunt Helen, but okay. I would come to later find out that no, he was renting a room in her home. This was not my Aunt Helen, and that's why I'd never heard of her. But okay, we're going to Aunt Helen's house. And I was so fascinated when we got there because I was the only kid there. There were no other children. And Aunt Helen had just finished baking some oatmeal cookies because my daddy told her that my favorite cookies were oatmeal cookies. So she baked me some oatmeal cookies. And she sat me down at the table with milk and cookies. And we're just sitting there, and I'm playing with my doll, and I'm having just the best time ever. He picks me up, he takes me to his room, and there we are watching TV, and I'm playing with my toys. And in that moment, I thought life just really, the only thing that could have been better was if my mom was here because I really wanted that family bond, a mom and a dad and me and my sister. That's what I wanted. And by the way, my sister has a different father. Uh, so from my earlier marriage from my mom. So that's why I'm not talking about her as if she didn't go with me, obviously. And so I just remember thinking, I wish my mom were here and I wish my sister were here. And as a child, I remember understanding that this was my normal. I remember understanding that for me, this is how things are, but hoping that they weren't. And I say that because children, we are so adaptable. You know, adaptability comes so normal for children. We simply adapt to the environment in which we are. Be it good or bad, we simply adapt. And I think that, something that with raising my children, there was something that I always told them, and they use it to their advantage. And you'll hear it later on as we go along. Um, that I always, with them, I would put myself in that mindset at that age. So whatever age they are, and whatever we're having a conflict, a good thing, a bad, whatever it is, they want to go somewhere, they want to do a thing, whatever that is, I would put myself in that mindset at that age so that I could parent them as to how I I wished or hoped or would have wanted for me at that time. So for example, when they say, "Well, I want to go here or go there," and maybe I don't necessarily agree that it's a great idea, but I think, well, wait a minute. When I was 14, what did I want? What did I do? What would I have said? What would I have done? That's kind of the mindset that I would use to help parent them along. And I always told them that I would do that for you because that's what I wanted for me. So they always knew that I would put myself in that place. And that's how they won a lot of arguments with me or a lot of outings in which I wish they had not gone back. But mommy, when you were this age, I thought you said, and so there we go. And I think that it's the parents we often forget because see we're adults for so much longer than we are children. So we oftentimes just forget what it's like to be a child. And so I was, growing just having my mom and sister here and me and my dad there, it was just normal for me. But that was not a normal that I wanted, but it was a normal that it was forced upon me. And so I simply adapted to that as my normal. But I just remember wanting them together so bad, but knowing that I couldn't have it. And it, I think my parents fell short. I think they fell short because they were always busy fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. They forgot about what was most important in that moment was their children. And that is how the doors were opened for harm because they were busy concerning themselves about themselves and only thinking about themselves, and right there smack dab in the middle in front of them they lost the big picture and harm came in. And I think if they had been paying attention to what was happening right in front of them, things would not have spiraled way out of control as they did. However, the story topic that I said is incest, and uh, no daughter ever wants to admit, that her father is not the best father. But we'll get on to that. So anyway, and this story, by the way, is not going to be in two parts, 5 parts, 10 parts, probably not even 80 parts. This story is going from as I started age 4 until today. So clearly, that's a lot of years to talk about and to cover, and it can't be done in an hour. But I always just dreamed of having my father close to me and in the home. And I just, the person he turned out to be later in life, as I were to grow up, was so far from that person that I had looked up to and had loved, and loved so, so very much. And I still love to this very day. Isn't that something? How you can love someone or some people that have done you such tremendous harm, the love is still there and never goes away because we often tend to just love our abusers, don't we? We just love them. I always think about, is there a way that, how do you shut that switch off? How do I've had people tell me, I don't see why you could still have anything to do with. I don't see why you could still even talk to. I don't see how you could even. And if it were me, and if it were me. And when I hear those things, I don't know who's right and who's wrong. Are they right and I'm wrong? Am I right? They wrong? I don't know. Like who's right and who's wrong in this situation? Because clearly it didn't do me any good. But I digress. So life goes on. Anyway, I visited with my dad this particular weekend, I mean, this memory just came up because this was one of the happy memories that I had. Me and my dad going to my dad's house for the weekend, visiting there with Aunt Helen, playing with my toys, having my cookies. Life was great. It couldn't get any greater than that, right? Life is amazing when you're 4 and having cookies. Life is just one big party as long as everything is going magical and amazing. Um, but it, just on that side, a few months on down the road, my parents do get back together, and my dad does come back to the house, and I'm as happy as can be, just as happy as you could ever imagine. I am ecstatic, to have my dad there with my mother. And so, as I said in the beginning, they're always hot and cold. So this one particular weekend, we're just at the house doing nothing special. I can remember me and my sister are just playing in our room. My parents are being my parents, and then the phone rings, and Oh my goodness, the phone rang. My mom picks up the phone. May I speak to Butch? May I ask who's speaking? Barbara. Why did she call the house? Why do these women, knowing they are messing around with a married man, knowing that he's married, knowing that he has kids at home, why do these women do that? But why do the men even to start with, or the women, why do they even, why? But then why do these women call the house? Because they know why they're doing it. Now, you know what though? At 4, I knew. Because I knew that Barbara wanted Butch. Because when your parents are always fighting, always arguing, always this, always that, you start hearing things and then they sit in your memory. And now you know, you feel like you know the whole situation probably better than your parents. You can often feel like, right? So, uh, this is Barbara. And I don't remember what my mother said after that. I know I heard her say, Butch, your bitch is on the phone. I know for a fact that's what I heard. Butch, your bitch is on the phone. And all it broke loose. Okay? It just all broke loose. They were yelling, screaming, the whole nine. Now, my dad didn't hit women, so he didn't hit my mother ever, so that was not a thing. But the yelling, the tearing the whole house apart, the throwing things, oh, my mother was good at that. Oh, she was good at that. And for me and my sister, we're just huddled up in our rooms. Oh my God, because we're hearing this fight I mean, things are breaking. We hear, stomping around on the floor. We don't know if things are being knocked over or what. But all of a sudden, my mother had called the ambulance. Now, every child, school age child, the ambulance is bad, right? This is a bad, bad thing. And so uh, we hear her calling for an ambulance. And then me and my sister kind of come out to see ambulance. That means someone's hurt. So who's hurt? So we come out to see what's going on. My mother had taken a box cutter and sliced his back open. She just laid. Don't ask me how. Was he turned this way, that way? Was she aiming for something different? I don't know. But she laid his back open. I mean, just, it was bad. It was bad. And I remember thinking that my daddy is going to die. I remember because there was just so much blood. It was so much blood. And he, I just remember him saying, "Oh, Freddie, I can't believe you did that." And he was just looking at her. And she was just standing there. And then all of a sudden, the EMTs, they come in, they assess the problem, they start doing whatever EMTs do. I'm 4 at that time. So I just saw, bandages and bottles of things. I don't, I was 4, so I'm just telling you what I remember and sitting at that 4. Obviously now I know they were antiseptics or alcohol or, stuff like that. But at that time, bottles of things and bandages and hurrying him onto the stretcher and hurrying him out the door. And while they were doing all of that, she went with them to the hospital. And my sister was old enough for her to stay at home with me. And so we are just left there in the house, just like that, just like that. They just left. And I say just like that because they left with all the information, all the discussion, all the feelings, all the everything. They just left. And I remember just being there. And my sister said, okay, we got to clean up. Because my mother had said before she left, y'all clean up. And that's all she said that I can recall. Y'all clean up. There was not a discussion about, I'm sorry this happened, or oh my goodness, I'm sorry you saw this, or I didn't mean for this, or your dad is going to be okay. Michelle, I'm sorry. Nothing. It was just, obviously he had to go, but she went too, and they just left. And here I am, four, and I'm looking. I know my sister doesn't have any answers because we were together at the, at the same, like what she knows. What does she know? She was busy trying to hear and listen in too, with the fight in the box cutter, but she didn't know any more than I know. So we were just left there to clean up, and and it was always like that. It was always like that. There was never any kind of communication, never anything being said, never an explanation, nothing. We were just left there alone to clean up. And you didn't dare not clean up because, whew, we'll get into that. But, oh no, if you were told to clean up, you were up fast in a hurry, you were cleaning up. And so we clean up the house and get it all back together. And I remember crying, and I know my sister was always there, to try to comfort me the best way she could. But don't forget, she's a child too. So, she's trying to comfort her little sister. But I don't think that my parents ever felt like she needed comfort or noticed that she was comforting me, but there was no one ever there to comfort her because my parents were never there to comfort me about anything. And so I always looked to my sister for comfort and support. And as I grew up, and I mean within a couple of years, like 7, 8, 9, growing up, I always remember wanting to comfort my sister too. Because during those times, it was so lonely for me. How can one be so lonely but surrounded by their whole family? It was so lonely for me, but I didn't have anyone to comfort or to be comforted by other than my big sister. And then when she was taken away from me, I had no one. But that's on down the line. But so she always tried to be there to comfort me when I was in distress, but there was never anyone there to comfort her. And I tried, but I was younger than her, so I don't know how much of a comfort I was, if I ever were, but she would comfort me in those isolating moments. And I just know I remember feeling, I hated Barbara. I absolutely hated her because I knew what she had done. I knew that she had done that on purpose because Barbara was the hometown sweetheart. And I'm from Dallas, Texas, Oak Cliff, by the way. And we were in Oak Cliff at this point. We're still living in Oak Cliff at this point, in this story. And Barbara and my daddy were from East Texas, Kaufman, Texas. Sorry, is it East? I don't think so. But either way, and she was his hometown sweetheart. But see, after he had gone off to the Air Force and then came back, he settled in Dallas. He didn't go back and settle in Kaufman. He came up to Dallas, the big city, and uh, at his job, he and my mother worked together, and he met my mother, and then he forgot all about Barbara. Well, as the hometown honey, his sisters just loved her. Oh my God. By the time he met my mother, his mother had passed, but his father was still alive. So anyway, oh, and he had three sisters. Oh, honey, they just loved Barbara. It was Johnny Mae, Ruby Jewel, and Dovey. And they just thought Barbara was just, honey, that was little Miss Sunshine right there. Hmm. Yes, indeed, honey. They just, oh, honey, Barbara and Butch. It was, yeah, that was it. That was it. And nothing else. And so when he met my mother and forgot all about her, they did not accept my mother, period. There was nothing she could do, nothing. Nope, forget about it. No, they didn't come to the wedding. They didn't want to have anything. No. They barely half-ass acknowledged me. They barely acknowledged me. Barely. Just barely. They did not go out of their way. I was not, special. Oh, I mean, I think it was all a floor show for them, a floor show for my father when he would bring me, because my mother wouldn't go and visit with them. When he would bring me to them, um, they would try, hey, little Butch, hey, little Butch. But I don't remember them going too much out of their way. He had one cousin that did. One cousin that got on well with my mother, and of course got on well with me, Carlos. But the rest of them, nah, they didn't. They didn't want nothing to do with me, nothing at all. And I knew that. I knew that, and I always knew it was because I was my mother's daughter. I knew that they did not want me or accept me around because I was my mother's daughter. Oh, here we go. And so, as a result of that, I always knew that I was not truly one of them. And so, when Barbara made that phone call, she made that phone call because she wanted to break down that household. That's why she did it. And do you know, at 4 years old, I knew that. At 4 years old, I knew. And by the way, there was never a taboo subject in our home. We would talk. My parents talked about any and everything. I knew where babies came from. I knew how they got here, how, when, where, if. It, at 4, I knew all everything. Don't. There is not a subject about us humans that I didn't know about. No, there was not a subject that I didn't know about. In fact, we had a cousin named May that was a lady of the evening. And I say lady of the evening for YouTube, but a lady of the evening. And I knew, and I knew her manager, pimp. Okay, her manager, pimp. I knew exactly what her work was, precisely. I knew exactly what her pimp did and what that stood for and all the things in relation to that and the how to's and the if ands and the here's and there's. Knew it all. I knew exactly what his role was and I knew exactly what his role wasn't. And I knew that she knew what his role was and what his role wasn't. Knew all of it. Okay, nothing to be left out. I knew it all. Okay, no taboo subjects. In fact, cousin May would always talk to me about keeping myself safe in the street. And she would always tell me because she would come to our house because it was close to where she worked. Would come to our house after work. Sometimes she would come stabbed up, beaten up, broken up, all the things. Okay, and she always taught me never to get in in a car with a man that I do not know. And this will come later down the line. But that teaching it came in clutch. But never get in cars with a man I don't know because she had been stabbed out, beat out, kicked out, drug out, all the things. And she would always talk to me about street game because she would always try to, she just wanted to make sure that I was safe, that I kept myself safe because I was a latchkey kid. So I was always walking to and from by myself, even at age 4. She knew that. I walked to and from at age 4 by myself. She knew. And so she always wanted to do everything she could to keep me safe and to help me keep me safe. And I know you may think of that like, oh my gosh, she was having these kind of conversations with you. She did. And my parents were around. They knew it wasn't a secret conversation. My parents knew about the conversation. Um, but I guess that was just her way of trying to help. I really did love my cousin, May. I really, really did. Even though I knew what she did, she to me was still worthy of my love. And she got it. And we'll talk more about her later, but back to Barbara. So when Barbara made that phone call that caused that traumatic fight, I hated her. I absolutely hated her. And it was at that moment, but I didn't learn before, but I learned then exactly what that kind of relationship does. When your parents are hot and cold or and seeing other people, when they break up and each go their separate ways for whatever amount of time, and then they go and meet somebody else, and then they come back together, that somebody else can come in and break down your family. I didn't know that before that phone call. I did not know that. I just thought, they broke up for a little bit and, he went here and did this and she went there and did that. But when they came back together, they were together and the others were gone. That is what I thought until that phone call. And so when that happened, that made me fear the other people that would come around because now I know the harm and the damage that they can do if they feel like doing it. So now I don't trust anyone that they have around because, yeah, when he was gone and I'm with him, he may or may not have a woman that I would meet or she would be around, kind of. He may or may not have someone, and then there they are. Or she may, have someone that's around ish, and then, when Butch comes back, well, then that guy's gone. Or sometimes they're back together for literally a weekend and then gone. It was just this whole weird dynamic. But me and my sister are right here living in the center of this madness. And I don't think that they ever even thought about that, about what that could, would, and is doing to us in that moment. I don't think they ever thought about it at all. I don't think they ever thought about it. So if you have children and this is your life, really take another look at that. Because I am telling you, okay, I'm going to end it here. But remember, I'm still four, so this is not over. I will see you in just a little bit. Don't forget to click that subscribe button and come right on back. And I will see you in the next one.